All right, making the switch to cricket now, picking up on a discussion we started on Tuesday's show where we touched on players prioritizing international games and how that would affect their livelihoods as well as the roles non-objection certificates may play. This, of course, has been a long-standing issue in the sport, but the most recent talk has been reignited by the adjusted dates for the Tata IPL, which was temporarily postponed due to the tensions at the India-Pakistan border. With the tournament set to resume on May 17, that's this Saturday, South African players are expected to leave India on the originally scheduled date, May 25, with one eye on the World Test Championship final, which begins on the 11th of June. That's 8 days after the new date for the IPL final. Australia, who will be South Africa's opponents in the Lord's showpiece, has given their players the option to choose whether or not they will see out their IPL contracts, even with captain Pat Cummins being one of 5 Aussies in the league who have been included in their squad. Now, the board says Cricket Australia will support players in their individual decisions whether to return to India or not. Team management will work through preparation implications for the World Test Championship final for those players who choose to play in the remaining IPL matches. On this side of the world, Cricket West Indies has not yet announced a decision on the 3 players in the IPL who have been included in their squad for the one-day international leg of their upcoming white ball series against England. Those players are Romaria Shepherd, who is with Royal Challengers Bengaluru, Sherfin Rutherford, who plays for the Gujarat Titans, and Shamar Joseph, who is contracted to the Lucknow Super Giants. Meanwhile, England has been more than decisive. English players who will feature in the series but whose teams are out of the playoffs will not return to India for the remainder of the league phase. However, those whose teams are likely to feature in the postseason will return to participate in the remainder of the league stage but miss the playoffs. All right, cricket analyst Wazir Mohammed joins us via Zoom as we try to hash out the individual responsibilities of both Cricket West Indies and its players in this specific situation. Faz, as usual, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. First of all, Faz, how surprised are you, or are you surprised any at all that Cricket West Indies is yet to produce a opinion or a ruling on this matter?
I'm not surprised because, in fairness, I think Cricket West Indies has recognized a long, long time ago that economically they can't compete with the IPL. They can't compete with most of the franchise tournaments. So therefore, um, I stand corrected. I don't think they've ever rejected an NOC. I don't think they've ever had a situation where they've basically told a player, you cannot participate in whatever franchise simply because of the economics of it. And again, it's easy for England to do it because their players are among the best paid in the world. So I would think that right now, Cricket West Indies are in a situation where they are hoping that maybe the players will make the decisions themselves, or if not, there can be a compromise reached with the BCCI, which is always a difficult situation because South Africa are finding themselves in that situation as well. So to answer your question, no, I'm not surprised at all that Cricket West Indies have not given a stated position on this situation.
Yeah, how about the position of Cricket Australia then? Does that position surprise you where they've said, hey, it's up to the players, including their test captain with a World Test Championship final coming up?
It has surprised me because I would have thought that it would have been pretty definitive that we want our players back by XYZ dates. South Africa have said it. Cricket South Africa have said that we fully expect that our players will be back after the originally scheduled date of the conclusion of the IPL of May 25th. But having said that, they are apparently very nervous that they don't antagonize the BCCI because remember, the Cricket South Africa T20 is essentially owned by BCCI franchises. So it becomes a very convoluted and complicated situation. So yes, I am surprised that Cricket South Australia have actually left it up to their players who may say, look, I'm committed to my franchise. The World Test Championship is a big deal, yes, but I'm already committed to this. So we'll have to wait and see how that one plays out.
Do you expect Faz to get a a release or a response from Cricket West Indies in the coming days, as you know, this topic is up for discussion?
Not too sure because I think Cricket West Indies, when they find themselves in these situations, would rather leave it alone. And maybe there are discussions going on behind the scenes with the players themselves. Ideally, you'd want a situation where there's an amicable settlement, an amicable compromise, a level of understanding, and saying, look, the 3-1 days coming up against Ireland, the 3 against England, we want you in the squad, but we understand not just the economics, but you're part of the IPL. You don't want to antagonize them. It's sort of like the classic football club versus country, especially for our part of the world. We remember here in Trinidad and Tobago the continuous toing and froing involving Dwight Yorke when he was at Aston Villa or Manchester United. And the clubs won't come out and say it openly, but quietly they put pressure on the players, more or less implying, well, that your country, Trinidad and Tobago, is not a big deal. So you really shouldn't be all too preoccupied with playing for them. In the same way, it might be implied, well, the West Indies are struggling anyway. So why not stay with us and not jeopardize your future with an IPL franchise? So those are the discussions that I'm sure will go on. Whether or not Cricket West Indies will be involved advocating for the players or trying to take a position, I doubt it very much.
Yeah, well, your West Indies team is struggling. How about you go ahead and, of course, try to help the team out of a struggling position is something else, that we could also consider. Now, the players that will be out, let's just say they continue with their IPL stint, Romario Shepherd, Shamar Joseph and Shafin Rutherford. How big of a miss will these players be if it goes that way?
They'll be a miss because, Shafin Rutherford, Shamar Joseph to a lesser extent because he hasn't played as much cricket as we would have liked to see him play. Romario Shepherd, definitely. He's had some really outstanding performances in between some ordinary ones in the IPL. But one of the interesting things, and I'm sure he'll be reminded of this if you recall, when Shamar Joseph got that seven wicket performance on the final day of the Brisbane Test match in January of 2024. Speaking after, he said if it ever came to a clash between a franchise and the West Indies, it will always be West Indies. Whether he meant West Indies Test cricket, that could be a matter for interpretation. But yes, the players will be missed, not just for those particular matches, but because the West Indies are trying to rebuild to get enough points to automatically qualify for the 2027 Cricket World Cup in South Africa. So as part of a journey, it's important for Darren Sammy and his technical team to have the players that they want available all the time. And immediately we see that could be a challenge.
Yeah, and Faz, I want to get a comment from you on the fact that Cricket West Indies and Darren Sammy, their stance generally has been to try their best. You just use the word compromise, try their best to keep the players happy. Is there merit in the context of this discussion? Is there merit to that thought, keeping the players happy? And to the extent that, there has to be a line drawn if, you're really taking West Indies cricket seriously.
Absolutely, Lance. And yes, I fully appreciate that situation because, again, when we go back to the Kerry Packer days, when almost the entire West Indies team at the time, with the exception of Alvin Kalicharan, had gone off to Kerry Packer, there was a willingness at that time by the players to compromise based on what we read and learned subsequently. However, the West Indies Cricket Board at the time took a pretty intransigent position, saying that you will be available on our terms or else that's it. And it turned out to be that's it until there was a compromise 2 years later. Now, it's even more challenging for a cricket board like in the West Indies, which economically, as we said before, cannot possibly compete with the riches on offer outside there, especially the IPL. And that's why there has to be a discussion. Yes, there will come a point when they will have to say, look, we can't afford you giving up this representation of the West Indies for the sake of your IPL or franchise commitments. And I think we haven't reached that point as yet. I don't think we're going to reach it with these coming matches because if the players choose to stay, I don't think the Cricket West Indies will in any way seek to disparage them because that would be going in a negative direction, which I don't think they want to do, especially with Darren Sammy on board. Because I think it's clear, we've all agreed, that Darren Sammy is on board now with all three formats, with the clear intent of trying to wean in or wean back some of those alienated franchise players.
Yeah, you just mentioned Alvin Kalecharan, Faz. I want to say I enjoyed your piece yesterday in Wired 868 about the little genius, the left-hander. He was my favorite player back then. I was probably 9 or 10 years old when he made his Test debut in 1972. So I didn't have the mental capacity to properly assess his ability. I must admit that I just liked his name, Alvin Kalecharan. It just sounded great. But I recognize now that my admiration of him was not misplaced.
Indeed, as I said in the piece, the top West Indies batsman at the time. He was the number 3. Viv Richards batted at number 6 in the World Cup final. And yes, averaging 57 in 22 Test matches, and the assault on Dennis Lilly in the preliminary phase of the tournament is certainly well remembered by those who saw it.
Yeah, and of course, as we go back to this discussion, in those days there weren't any rival franchises that teams would have to juggle their time with. And it was pretty much all West Indies cricket, and players who played for the West Indies only thought about and only committed themselves to West Indies cricket. Of course, until Kerry Packer 4 or 5 years after that.
Yeah, and there was a bit of a situation involving Clive Lloyd, which I mentioned in the profile on him a few days ago. You might recall that piece where actually he was in Australia playing grade cricket, club cricket in Australia, and therefore was ineligible to represent the West Indies for that 73 series against Australia. And it took the Guyana President Forbes Burnham to get him out of that contract, to come back to the West Indies, to get him eligible to play, and he responded with 178 at border against the Aussies, even though the Aussies won to retain the Frank Worrell Trophy. So yes, it was minor compared to what is happening now. It was just about a tiny minority of players who would have had club contracts in Australia and elsewhere that might have interfered with their West Indies commitment. But it's nothing like what is happening now.
Yeah, the bigger picture here that exists now in international cricket, though, Faz, is an issue of finances and income for the players. And there's no question that players in today's global game have at their disposal a lot more opportunities to earn a lot more money than players 40 or 50 years ago. So I ask you this then, given what is happening in the West Indies situation and the topic that we are now on, is this really bad for West Indies cricket, or from the perspective of the players, is this something that we've got to embrace and find a way to work around it?
Yes to both, because it is something that you can't get away from it. You have to embrace it. It's a reality. You're never going to have a situation where Cricket West Indies are so economically strong that they could reject players' requests for NOCs when there's West Indies duty. That's not going to happen, certainly not in the foreseeable future. On the other side of things, it's going to make things even more difficult for the West Indies to be a cohesive unit and therefore successful. But one quick final point, Lance. You often hear the reference, well, you know, in those days, our players were more dedicated, more loyal to the West Indies and would give everything to play for the West Indies. I would say again, Kerry Packer in 1970s, 78, 79, and also, which people often overlook, 1948-49, the great Frank Worrell, in his very first year as a Test cricketer, opted not to go to India because he said, I'm a professional playing league cricket in England, and what you're offering me is really chicken feed. And he opted not to go. I don't think too many people would even dare to suggest that Frank Worrell was lacking in his dedication to West Indies cricket.
Well, that's a great point there, Faz. As usual, pleasure to have you on the show, and we'll chat again soon. Hopefully, we'll hear a stated position from Cricket West Indies before the start of that England series, or maybe when we see the final 11, we'll know who is there and who is not.
You might hear the statement after.
All right, take care, Faz. We're going to go to a break on the SportsMax Zone. So much more to come. Stay with us.